and welcome to the How To Girl TV. In this week's episode, we've got a lady joining us called Jo Dodds. And Jo Dodds spent many years in senior retail HR, and then she decided to set up her own business so that she could work from home and start a family. And she started her business in 2005, and her daughter, known online as Little Dodsy, is now nearly 6. And Jo works with businesses and ensures that they can take full advantage of the new social world. So she helps them develop profitable business relationships using social media. And she helps change business culture to enable that to happen. And I'm not going to tell you any more about her myself because obviously Jo's here and she's going to tell you it all herself. So let's go over and say hello to Jo. Hi Jo, and welcome to the show.
Thanks, Carol. It's great to be here.
So, Jo, I've just given a little introduction about you, but would you like to actually tell everybody who's listening exactly why you decided? I mean, other than obviously you wanted to be at home with your daughter, to start a family, and you now have a daughter.
Yep.
So it's great that you can work around her. But what made you go into social media and social from a corporate HR background?
Okay, I'll start at the beginning. A lot of people get pregnant, have a child, and then don't go back to their job, do they? And that's how they start their business. But I actually decided to start a business first, so that it was all sort of set up, and I knew what I was doing, so that I then could get pregnant and then work from home. So as you can tell from all the timings, that's what happened. And my first business was actually a local community magazine. I saw an article in a magazine about a lady who'd started one herself and was then selling the sort of instructions on how to do it. So other people could do it. So I bought it. It was quite funny. I, within 4 weeks, published my first magazine, including spending a week in France with a computer system I'd never done before, never tried before, didn't have any instructions for, and I wasn't online, so I couldn't actually look it up. And I just taught myself how to use Quark and designed a magazine, 24 pages. I was very proud of myself. And that was August 2005. And I, at one stage, had 8 magazines in the local area, which was a bit of a nightmare. I look back now and think, how did I go to print with 8 magazines every month? And then about 4 years ago, I decided I hated selling business advertising. I only did it because I wanted to work from home and have my own business. So I closed a few that weren't very successful, weren't easy to do at all, and sold 3 of them and kept the one in Hythe, which is where I live in Kent, near the Channel Tunnel. So I kept that one and then thought, now what do I do? And I've always been really interested in the internet. I always say when I'm speaking that I was an early adopter of online dating. I met my husband 10 years ago on youdate.com. And I just really loved the concept of the internet, and I thought, I'd really like to get involved doing something with that. So I sort of shifted from helping businesses to get more business themselves through advertising with me to helping them to market their businesses online. And I just really went out and learnt about it. I knew a reasonable amount by then about marketing a small business, so it was just going to find out how to do it better online. I bought a book about how to design WordPress websites and designed one. Read the book, typical me. And next thing I knew, I was helping businesses with their online marketing. Then social media sort of came along quite soon after that. And for me, it was a real natural thing to get involved in. I built my business through business networking. That was how I'd built the magazine business in the first place. For me, social media was just an opportunity to take the social networks that I had offline and put them online, and that's really how I got into social media quite quickly, because I had a big network already, and then I just sort of tapped into that online. And then it's probably 3 years ago now, 2.5 years ago, I decided to specialise in social media for small businesses because it was the thing that I really enjoy, and it is really close to my heart, I guess. And it's funny, I went to a school reunion about a year ago, and it was arranged through Facebook, and there were about 50 people there, none of whom were really my close circle of friends. They weren't in my classes at school. I didn't socialise with them outside of school, but I pretty much could have a one-to-one conversation with everyone in that room last year about how things were when we were at school and all that sort of stuff, which made me realise I was actually a natural networker. I networked my way around school. I knew enough about everybody. I knew the SWATs, I knew the naughty children, I knew the cool ones, I knew the not so cool ones. And so for me, helping people to use tools that allow them to build better relationships with people, whether that be with their staff, with their customers, with their prospects, with their suppliers, is just, what I've done my whole life, I guess, in the HR side of things and now. And I've sort of gone through a bit of a transition recently where I was focusing very much on small businesses, and now I'm looking to work more with corporates, because, and when I say corporate, actually it's not really just corporate, it's anyone really who's got a number of employees who can help their business through using social media, and partly it's about educating people, because a lot of businesses are scared to use social media and really scared to give their staff access to it. But then it's about, training and coaching people in how to best use social media to benefit their business. And that's, as I said, through business relationships, not necessarily to get more customers. It could be customer service, it could be recruitment, lots of other sort of ways that you might use social media as well as just to get more customers. That was a bit of a long answer to a question.
Is she ever going to breathe?
No.
Wow. That was sort of like so much information all in one answer.
That's how I got to where I am. It's never easy.
So you said in there that you're a natural networker. Mm-hmm. And obviously on social media, you have to be able to network, not face to face necessarily, and you're not talking, but you're writing. Mm-hmm. What would you say to people that say, but I'm not a natural networker? Can they still use social media and make it successful?
Well, I would say that the people who worry about going on social media because they don't know what to say, which is normally what people say, isn't it? That the technology just gets in the way, because not everybody, most people know how to build a relationship offline. Most people know how to go to an event, speak to people, ask questions, be helpful, introduce them to other people, connect them with information that they're looking for. We do all of that naturally in our offline world. Social media is just a sort of online way of doing what we already know how to do, but I think because it's online and it's a bit techy and it's it's got a title, people start to think that they can't do it because there must be some mystery to it. And okay, it's about which buttons to press and stuff like that too, and then there's the whole sort of marketing side of things and thinking about your strategy and all of that, but the actual fundamental connecting with people and communicating with people, we know how to do. So I don't let people say I'm no good at that sort of stuff, because I know that they are. They just need to get over the fact that writing it down on a social media platform feels a bit different to what they would normally be doing. But in reality, it's no different to what they're able to do already. Yeah.
And I think you're right there when you say about the technology and the buttons to press. But actually, it's like you just mentioned, it's knowing about your business. And if you're offline, you know who you want to talk to, and you know what you're going to say and who you're going to introduce, and you build those relationships, and it is the same online. Mm-hmm. Obviously, social media is also that technology really does get to a lot of people. I mean, I see it with my clients. And a lot of the time I get people that say, there's too much, it's overwhelm. I don't know what to do first, I don't know what to do next, and I don't have time for this, I've got a business to run. What would you say to people that say that?
Well, I hear that all the time too, and I have a couple of responses to it, really. Firstly, I have this big thing about just do what you can do. So don't get stressed about whether you can or you can't do stuff and how much there is to do, and let all that overwhelm come in. Fundamentally, you can only do what you've got time to do, so you've got to decide what is the right thing for you. So the second thing, which I probably should have said first, is about looking at your business and marketing strategy and deciding what you want to achieve, and then working out what you need to do to achieve that. And I think the problem with social media, and with a lot of social media sort of gurus, experts that keep popping up everywhere, is there's a lot of emphasis on the activity, on doing and connecting with people and that sort of thing, and less emphasis on why you're doing it in the first place. And then if you know why you're doing it, and then you can then make a decision about how far you're prepared to go and what you're prepared to do, so it doesn't get too overwhelming. And I'm sort of a good example of that for bad reasons, really, which is that I don't do tons of stuff on social media, and I certainly, there's loads of stuff I could do better. but I'm not tied to it. Although I do social media, I don't sort of think, oh God, I haven't checked Twitter for the last 5 hours or whatever. I mean, I sometimes don't check it for 3 days. I mean, it's not great because I'm supposed to be very responsive and, respond if somebody's asked something or if something's going on. But ultimately, I run my business and I work with clients. And if I haven't got time to check my social media whilst I'm doing that, I don't. And that's what I say to clients. And I think the people who spend all their time on social media generally probably haven't got very much to do because otherwise, apart from the fact that there are some tools you can use to help automate some of the stuff so that you do a bit more, you are seen to be doing more than you're perhaps physically doing at the time. Other than that, I think, we've all got businesses to run, we've got day jobs, we've got things that we're doing, and social media has to fit with that, and it shouldn't become the sort of be all and end all. And I don't think people should feel guilty as well. Can I give you another example?
Yeah, please do.
A friend of mine, I've used this example a lot recently. A friend of mine has a weight loss clinic, and he feels guilty that he's not on Twitter, and every so often he keeps saying to me, oh, should I be on Twitter, or I don't do enough on Twitter, and all this sort of thing. And we had this conversation recently where I said to him, well, how do you get customers at the moment? And the business is doing very well. And he said, well, I place an ad in a magazine like the equivalent of Kent Life that we've got here. You've probably got, I don't know whereabouts you are, but you've got something there as well. Are you Surrey? No, where are you?
I'm Lincolnshire.
Lincolnshire. Do you have a Lincolnshire Life?
Yes, I think we do.
Yeah, so those posh glossy magazines, he places an ad which is expensive, but he knows how many people will reply. He knows how many people will go on and buy from him, and he knows that each of those people is worth a few £1,000s to his business. So my thing to him is, well, if you want more customers, just place more ads, because those ads are working and you know the return you're getting on them. Don't worry about Twitter. Don't feel guilty. Don't use it. Don't even go there. You've got a way of getting customers currently that's working for you. Now, if you need to save costs, then you may not want to spend too much on your advertising, and then you might want to start thinking of other options, and that's when you then need to think that you've got to still invest some time, which is still worth money, in setting up Twitter and using it. But maybe that's the time to do it. It's not now when you're too busy and all you're doing is feeling guilty. So I am a big advocate of find out what you need to do, work out what it is, and do that, and forget everything else.
And I think that is really important because, like you said, that guy is sitting there feeling guilty that he's not on Twitter. And there's so many people out there saying, if you're not on social media, will you be here in 5 years? And, for some businesses, that is fact. You have to be on social media because that's where your customers are, that's where your potential clients are. But for other businesses, like the example you've just given, they don't need now, right at this minute, to be on social media if what they're doing is working. So it's not a be all and end all.
No.
For me, if I wasn't on social media, I would be struggling because all of my clients come from Facebook.
Yes.
That's where I build my relationships. That's where I network, because I live in a black hole in the middle of England that nobody wants to visit, and there's very little going on. And also for other reasons, but my life or my business is online, so I need that. But some businesses don't, and I think that's a really important thing for people to remember. If what you're doing now is working and you can scale it and continue just doing it and repeating it, and it will still bring you clients, then stick with what you're doing and don't worry about the other. If it's not working, then you need to start thinking, okay, traditional's not working for me, or I can't afford this anymore, in which case means it's not working, because if it is working, you can afford it.
Yeah.
Then start looking at your social media. And if people were at that stage, you've just mentioned Twitter a lot. I'm terrible on Twitter because it doesn't suit my personality and I keep forgetting to go on it. How would you say to people, how do they choose which social media platform? You've mentioned looking at your marketing plan and your business and what results you want, which is absolutely key. But then how do they work out, if they've never been on social media, well, okay, this is my results, but what do I start with?
A good question, and sort of leads on from what we were just saying about making decisions about where you're going to be and focusing on those. That in some businesses, people will need to be on social media because their customers want them to be. So people try and interact with them, or talk about them, even if they're not interacting with them, on various platforms. And if they're not there, they do need to be there, because if their customers are, wanting to interact with them there, then they need to be there. The same as you would if a customer phoned you, you'd need to answer the phone. But the starting point really is to decide where to go. Is, where are the customers, where are the prospects that you're trying to find, and where are your existing customers already, and in the most quantity, if you like. So if you know that lots of your, if you're a B2C business, then Facebook is likely to be really good from that point of view, because people are on there browsing around in their free time, being social and so on. They're not necessarily focusing on their business at that time, depending. But then Twitter can be really good, but it would probably depend on the type of business that you're running, what you're trying to sell, as to whether those people who are likely to be interested in it are likely to be on Twitter as well. But it changes all the time, doesn't it? The big group of people on Twitter now that I don't think we ever imagined would be there are the youngsters, and they're on there trying to avoid their parents because they're linked up with all their parents on Facebook now, and they, instead of, what I think is interesting is if they actually knew what they were doing, they could completely secure their Facebook page profiles so that their parents only saw what they wanted them to see, and the parents would be happy. They'd think everything was fine. And then they'd have all this other stuff going off that the parents didn't see. But they don't. They choose to go on Twitter instead, so that they can more anonymously, ironically, as it's so open, more anonymously have those conversations without the parents finding out. But yeah, so the answer to the question really is work out where your existing customers, or better would be your prospects, because obviously your existing customers aren't necessarily the same as the people you're attracting now, but they're also obviously a good indication, and they're people you can ask as well. So you can find your customers on social media and see where they are as a starting point, and then potentially use that one platform to begin with and sort of branch out from there. The other thing is to look and see what your competitors are doing. The competitors who are successful, or you think are successful, where are they, and emulate some of what they're doing. But don't necessarily emulate it just because they're there, because they might not be getting much from it either.
And again, I think that's something where you've said that sometimes perception is different online. Just because you see someone else and you think, wow, they must be doing really well and they're placing all these ads and they've got all this and that and the other, doesn't necessarily mean that it is working, does it?
No, exactly.
So it is, like you say, it's a matter of looking at the right platform, which is what you would do in the offline world. Where are people hanging out? Where do you go? You wouldn't go to a business networking event if none of your potential clients or people that you can meet that can introduce you to your clients, you wouldn't go and spend every day at that networking event. You'd go and find a different group, a different event where you can actually go, where you are going to find people that are interested in what you do. So I think that was a really good point to make. I didn't know that about Twitter, that there's more youngsters on there now, so I've learned something today. And one that you haven't mentioned yet is blogging, and I know you do a lot of blogging. And I also know a lot of...
Depends how you define a lot.
Well, I know that you know about blogging, yes. And you can help other people. And you said yourself, you set up your own WordPress site. And for a lot of people I know, blogging starts to really... It's like, ooh, Facebook, okay, I can talk to people. Twitter, I can put these quick tweets out and somebody might see it, somebody might not see it. But what's this blogging thing all about? I'm not a writer, I'm not an author. Is blogging going to bring me anything in my business? Is it going to help me find new clients?
There's a couple of really good reasons to blog, and the reason I was laughing about me and blogging is I haven't written one for a few weeks, which is rubbish. But again, I'm busy doing other stuff, and as I said, pick what you can do and only do what you can do, and don't feel guilty. So I'm not feeling guilty. But the two main reasons for doing it are firstly about being found in the search engines, you can, if you have a static site where nothing changes and it just says this is what I do, these are my products and services, it's really hard to find that ranking on Google for the keywords that you want to be found for, because Google likes fresh content. A static site doesn't change. You're not going to change your products and services description every 5 minutes, because that just would be silly. So having a blog gives you an opportunity to create this content that Google likes, and it also gives you a chance to create content that you can share on your social platforms. So you can find other people's content, but you can also put your own content out there. And that's about positioning you as the go-to person, the expert in your niche or in your location or whatever. And it can really help in lots of ways. It can help to build those relationships and that whole people by people thing, that if people are reading what you've written, they read who you are, then they start to feel that they know about you. And it can also really help to shorten the selling cycle. I did some work a while ago with an offline marketing company who were trying to pitch to a certain business, and I think we had about 3 or 4 meetings, sort of couple of hour meetings, and it was a half-an-hour drive to get there, and they didn't win the business in the end anyway, but I just couldn't believe how many meetings we had to have with this flipping potential client to get to the stage where they were going to do something. And it wasn't like a massive project for lots of money, and it was like the cost per recruit in that sort of way. If you worked out how much it cost to get everyone in that room on all those occasions versus what they were going to get back from that client, just didn't seem to make sense really. And then when you look online, people have bought from me because they've seen me online, and then they just phone up. We have one phone call and they spend a substantial amount of money for some of my mentoring programs or whatever. And you think, offline you have 4 meetings, online it's one phone call. How does that happen? I've got clients in New Zealand. I've never met them. I'd love to. I keep telling my husband we must go on a business trip, or I must. I don't know him. But I don't know whether I ever will meet them. I hope I do. But they got to know me through forums, through my social media, through my blogging, and they built a picture of who I was before we spoke. And so I didn't have to say too much. I just had to sort of not say the wrong thing to make them think that it was all made up. So it's a really good way of building your credibility and really letting people know who you are. And one of the greatest compliments I get is when I'm somewhere and somebody goes, "Oh, you're just like I imagined you were going to be. You're just like I thought you were," because I believe you need to be authentic online, and I try to. And I think my writing and my blogging, as well as my newsletter and so on, really gives over who I am, and people are really pleased when they find that I am who they thought I was. And so am I. So it's 2 things to say: it's search engines and places to send people to on your social platforms, but also about positioning yourself as the real go-to person. And for small businesses, there's so much opportunity. They always go, "Ooh, I don't know what I'd write about." You're not supposed to be writing a book or being like a journalist. If you're a plumber, you can write your top 10 tips for not letting your pipes get frozen in the winter, or how to change things, like simple instructions for how to do things that people can do themselves without having to call the plumber in. And then the plumbers go, "Yeah, but then I won't get any business, will I?" And my point to that is, well, how many times have you got somebody in to do something that you know how to do yourself? I pay a cleaner because I don't want to do the cleaning. I do know how to clean. I do, honestly, but I don't want to do it, so I pay someone else to do that. Now, if I'm going to a plumber's website because I think I might need some help, I then get some instructions that enable me to do whatever it is I was going to get the person to do. I probably still wouldn't do it. I'd probably be really impressed by the fact that he'd given, or she had given me that information. I'd think they sounded professional and organised and like they knew what they were talking about, and then I'd probably buy from them as a result of it. So giving sort of your secrets away isn't necessarily going to stop people buying from you. In lots of ways, it will do the other. It will draw them to you and help them to refer you and actually do and buy from you because they think you're good.
And I think that is a very good point. If you're not online and sharing and using social media, and your website has nothing new on it, then people are not going to find out much about you. But by doing the blogging and putting articles on there and being helpful, that actually immediately raises who you are, and it positions you into a completely different place. If you go and look at 3 websites and 2 are just a website with the opening hours and the prices and the phone number, and then there's one that's giving you tips and helping you out, and you're really getting the feel of who that person is, you're automatically going to be drawn to them.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I just think that is such a good point that you've brought up, because it is something that people don't realise, and that they have a glossy website that's cost them thousands of pounds, but it is absolutely useless to them. And I think the fact that you mentioned plumbers there, because quite often people say, well, if you're in that particular, I'm a builder, I'm a plumber, what good's this stuff going to do me? But you've just given a really great example of that. And I think the fact that giving people, you said, about giving your best, that is really key, isn't it?
Oh, definitely. I did.
I need to cough.
Okay.
Sorry.
I did a talk this week about business to business or social media for business to business companies, and I got some examples of companies who are in that area, so they're B2B, and also quite sort of weird businesses who are actually really doing really well with online marketing. And there was one which was called the Indium Corporation. And do you know what indium is? I didn't. It's a malleable metal, and it's used in electrodes. And what they did was that they identified all the keyword phrases, or so the words that they thought people were using to find information about indium and the things that they do. And as a result of that, they created 17 blogs, separate blogs, each around one of these actual phrases. And now if you do searches, I did a search as an example, which was for fusible alloys, and they're top of Google just below the 2 Wikipedia entries. And, Wikipedia, obviously very well optimized and all that sort of thing. And they're there because there's tons and tons of content online created by the Indium Corporation, and their blog strapline is something like from one engineer to another. So it's all very much about specialist knowledge and so on. And they put a lot of effort into their blogging, and their head of communications has a phrase which I won't get right, but it's something about I not create content, I do something with content. I can't remember what the phrase was. I do something with content and pass off contacts. So he's basically saying, because we're creating all this content, we are getting leads, and that's why we're doing it. And we wouldn't be doing 17 separate blogs and getting all these extra people writing stuff for us if it wasn't working. And they had an example where I think they'd increased their sales 600% in a quarter, which they are putting down to the blogging strategy. And they went to a trade show where they got the same number of leads as the previous year, but they reduced their costs by 75% because they got the leads coming to them at the show that they'd actually connected with online through their blogging. So they didn't just stand there shoving a business card into somebody's hand as they went by. They actually had people coming to them because they saw them as being the premium supplier in the industry sort of thing, because of their online stuff they were doing. So that was great. And then the other one I got was about a steel building supplier, metal building supplier, and one of the things they've got on their YouTube channel is a time-lapse video of them putting one of their steel buildings up. And those sorts of things, people think, oh, steel buildings, how boring would that be? But then you look at this time-lapse video. I mean, I have to admit, I was the woman who used to watch Play School, and love the let's go and see how they make milk bottles or whatever it was. But to see this building going up in this video was really entertaining. And they've got tons going on around their social media. They use their blog to talk about customer case studies. So they've got one where a guy had a rock band and he wanted one of these buildings built so that they could rehearse their rock band in it. So there's this whole story about that, which is obviously interesting, even for me, who I'm not in the market for a steel building. I can't imagine I ever will be. But it was an interesting read because it was a personal story about a rock band wanting a building to practice in. It wasn't about a steel building that's got rivets and all that sort of thing. It was a human interest story that made me read the whole story. And it's these people saying, oh, we haven't got anything to say, we don't know what to say, and who are we to be putting this sort of information out there? But you all have stories about customers and your products, and you have content already. There's probably brochures and stuff that's already in the business that could be chopped up and used. And as I said, things like customer stories and testimonials and stuff can lead to, interesting stories that give you great content to put online. So I think that people sort of worry that they're not going to have anything to say, and actually they've got tons to say already. It's that technology thing's got in the way again thing.
Definitely, and I think that was again another key point about stories. It's not just about bland facts, this is what we do, this is what we have, these look like this, because that's just telling people the features of what you have. The stories actually give the benefits, because somebody's watching somebody use your product or service, or the results that they've had after watching it, and how they feel, and all the emotions come into it as well, don't they?
Yes, yeah.
And that is something that a lot of people don't really think about. I just talk about what we do. And you said earlier about being authentic. And I think some people, because it's written, because it's online, they try and think, how am I supposed to write? And what can I write? And this has got to be something completely new and completely different, because it's so busy out there. When actually all they have to do is just be authentic, be themselves, and write about what they do, and talk to the customers that they really want to work with.
Exactly. And I've got another example of that I'm telling a lot at the moment, because it's frustrating me. There's a holiday centre where we take our caravan. I keep admitting to having a caravan. I really shouldn't. And we go there a lot. It's near where I used to live, so we go there once or twice a year and catch up with friends and so on. And their culture, their customer service culture is very much very informal. There's no suits. I don't even know who the supervisors are, because there's no sort of way of telling, and it almost feels like it's not run by managers or supervisors at all. It's just run by the staff. And I know that Colin does the children's activities. I know Jack's in the pub, because we chat to her and she knows little Dodsy, and there's all that sort of, it feels really family, and we go there, and we see people again and all this sort of stuff. When you look at their social media presence, they have a Facebook page, and they answer people's questions, and they put professional responses on there. And you wouldn't say that what they were writing on there was not the right thing to write, and didn't have the right sort of voice for their business, apart from, once you've been there and you've experienced the service and you've met all the staff, you can see there's a massive disconnect between their Facebook voice and the actual staff. And this is where I think they should have Colin tweeting, or on Facebook or whatever, Jack's doing some stuff as well, because their customers know what's happening, because the customers go there and experience it. But as a prospect, you don't know what it's like, because you can't tell from the way that they're appearing to be online. And they're doing that because they're being professional, and they've probably got one marketing assistant who's writing all these things. And why wouldn't you speak in that sort of way? Well, you wouldn't, because in reality, when you get there, the reason why everyone loves you is because it's homely, down to earth, family, and all that sort of thing. And that's the thing about, as you say, going a bit like, oh, it's business, it's online, I've got to sort of be posh. Actually, what are you like normally? Because that's what it needs to be. Because ultimately, if you've created one persona online and then it's something completely different in real life, even if the online one, as in their case, is still a good one, because it doesn't connect, you're missing massive opportunities. And the worst thing is when you create this really good thing, and then when they get you, your service is rubbish, then that would be even worse. But people, I just think people don't, they miss that bit. I'm going to cough as well now. They miss that bit of it, that real life people bit of it, and I think one of the beauties of social media is that people are more informal now than they used to be, but we're still going through a big change. And, I'm going to do some work with a local farm, an attraction, in the next couple of months. And it's quite exciting, because up to now, they've not really done very much with social media, but when they were thinking about it, it was going to be a corporate one account type thing. And actually what we're going to do is going to determine the different voices that need to be there, because the corporate bit is relevant, because they're a charity as well, so that needs to be in there. But they have a farmer who all the children absolutely adore, and vice versa. And so we're going to have the farmer online in some shape or form, depending on what we decide, as well as whatever else. We haven't done the work yet, so we don't know what. But it's really exciting and interesting for me, because I just think that's the point. When you go to that farm, the farmer is the be-all and end-all as a child, or as a parent taking your child, and that's what you want to see online, because that's what will draw you there in the first place and will keep you coming back. So, and I just think social is just such a great opportunity for businesses to be real, and a lot of them don't get it and don't understand it and worry too much about people saying bad things online, and choose not to engage with it on that basis. And we were talking earlier about different businesses. I think, a lot of solopreneurs have really got going on social media. Really big companies have done. The bit in the middle, there's so many businesses who just don't want to go there because they don't know how they're going to manage it with resource and all that sort of thing. But also, how am I going to let somebody other than a PR person speak on social media? In my corporate days, we had the one person who was allowed to talk to the press and nobody else was allowed to say anything. But I worked in retail, and on a daily basis, we had thousands of employees talking to our customers, because that's how we ran the business, and they had to talk to customers, otherwise there wouldn't be any customers. And it didn't always go right, but pretty much it was okay because we recruited the right people, we trained them, we had the right culture and everything. And that's the same with social media. You can get people. Okay, it's written and it's one to many. It's not one to one and verbal. So I can see why people worry more. But it's not as scary as everyone sort of thinks it is. And some big companies that you'll be aware of too are making really big mistakes on social media, really publicly, and getting in trouble for it. But they just move on, and they still exist, and they're still as successful as they were, because we're starting to sort of understand that as things develop, these things will happen, and it's not the end of the world. Whereas, a year ago, perhaps we thought it would have been. But, you can sort of make mistakes on social media, even though you wouldn't want to, and still survive, funny enough.
And that's something that I've found. I mean, I'm always authentic. I write the same as I talk. And when people meet me, it's like, I feel as though, I already know you really well, which is great, because I don't then have to explain who I am, what I do, how I help people, because people know that already. So we just get straight into a conversation. Mm-hmm. But I think there where you said about mistakes and, but it's okay to make mistakes. And I find that a lot of time people like it when I make a mistake, because it makes me real, and it's like, doesn't have to be perfect, and she makes mistakes. Oh, she didn't get that right, oh, she forgot that, or her headphone dropped off, or whatever, and I think that is what makes it more personal and actually helps increase your business, rather the people are worrying it's going to decrease and it's going to get wrong and they're not going to get the right clients because they might make a mistake or say the wrong thing. But actually that usually, because people are buying from people, even if it's a big company, you want to buy from people. Yeah, so making mistakes is actually a pretty cool thing to do.
Mm-hmm. Having said that, it doesn't stop me agonising sometimes for hours before I send a tweet. I did this speaking event on Tuesday, and we were tweeting out with the hashtag so that we were getting the conversation going, and I set off going, just on my way with my new dress, my red shoes, and my slides, looking forward to it or something. And then I in the end I took the hashtag off, so I still sent it out on Twitter to people who follow me, but I didn't send it to the hashtag so that the company that I was doing the work with would see it, because I just thought it sounded a bit too informal. But then after it happened, I thought it would have been fine.
Yeah.
And actually what happened is my Hootsuite account on my phone went mad, and I kept retweeting people from one of my clients' Twitter accounts. So I did make a mistake. Still no idea how it happened. And the organiser came up to me and said, I did wonder who that person was. I said, oh, yes, it was me. I don't know how it happened either, but I'm just trying to delete them now. So that's quite funny.
Oh, dear. Yeah, I mean, it's just... I think one of the key things that you've said today really is look at what your business is doing, what's working now, what's not working. If things are working, then keep doing the same. If things are not working, then start to look at different things. Know where your clients are, or your potential clients, not your current clients so much, and be authentic. Mm-hmm. What would you give if I said to you, right, I want you to give one tip for people that are not yet really utilising social media to the best, or people who have tried it and it's not working, so they've given up. What would your one tip be to actually use social media and make it a success? Can you do one tip? If not, we'll have 5.
So these are people who are using it, but it's not working for them.
Yeah, because we know there's a lot of people out there who have invested a lot of time, some
Yeah.
people a lot of money, but they're very frustrated because it's like, I'm not getting anything in return and this is just wasting all my time and efforts.
I think it goes back to what we said already. It's about pulling it back to why are you doing it and what are you hoping to achieve from it. And I think if it's a bit like I was talking to somebody earlier and he talked about going to a networking meeting with no idea of why you were there, sort of thing. It's like if you're on social media because you just want more customers, then it might work, it might not, because it's a very broad reason to be there, and that won't really drive sort of behaviour that's likely to make that happen, other than by accident, sort of thing. You know, a lot of people when they start going on social media and just want more customers and haven't really thought about the concept of it will start tweeting out special offers, or, you know, everything that comes out as a sales message, isn't it? And of course that just turns people off. It's completely not what social media is about anyway. And, you know, surprisingly, that doesn't work. So it's sort of about being more specific. So, you know, am I going on there because I want to find somebody who does something or other, whatever it might be? And an example for me is a bit of work at the moment is coming through from me working with marketing consultants who don't have a social media part to their business. So for me, some of my social media activity at the moment is around finding and connecting with marketing agencies who don't have social media but offer most other things, because then, you know, there's a potential gap in their offering, and also just for their own business it might be an opportunity as well. And so because of that, I'm spending more time looking at LinkedIn and what I do with that, and probably less time other than personally on Facebook, for example. And that's because I've gone back to a specific need and then thought, what's the activity I need to do to achieve that? And I think that's the thing. People who are using social media and it's not working, they need to go back to why they're using it. And it's not just about getting more customers. It's about who are those customers, or what do you want to do for them, or what's the problem they've got that you can help with. And once you know that, then trying to work out how you can connect with those people and what you can offer them that will get you on their radar, if you like. So, you know, is there certain types of content that you could write that would attract them, that you can share with them, that looks, you know, positions you as an expert, shows that you're generous, and just basically gets you on their radar. And that was about 4 tips, wasn't it? But they was just go back to the beginning and start again with what you're doing, you know, why you're doing it, and therefore what you need to do. Because, as I say, I think most people are on social media and it's not working. They're not on there with the right mindset of why they're on there anyway, and they're probably ploughing lots of time and energy into lots of chat that isn't going to get them very far anyway. And they wouldn't do that in real life. They wouldn't like hang around street corners talking to people randomly, would they? They'd be doing very specific things, and that's what you need to do with social media. Very specific actions.
Yeah, no, I think that is really, really key. I bang on about strategy, get your foundations in place, know why you're doing things. And I do that no matter what program I'm running, no matter what client I'm talking to, what training course I'm doing. I always start with know what you're doing and why you're doing it, because if you don't, you're going to struggle.
Yes, yeah.
So I think that is an absolutely great tip. I mean, you've shared so many tips, and that is going to, people listening into the interview, they're going to be able to take a lot away from this. And it's like, oh yeah, that was really, and I've lost my earpiece. I knew that would happen.
It's because you were wiggling around getting all excited.
I know, that's the problem. It's like, don't move, your earpiece will fall out. And I just love the way you tell so many stories and give examples, which I think is great, you know, because people, they get that rapport with a story, and it's like, oh, yeah, and it starts to make more sense. So thank you so much for sharing it in stories as well as your expertise in facts, which was, I think it's been great. And it's been great having you on here. If people want to learn more about you and what you do, what we'll do is we'll put some links under the video so that they can actually come across and look at your site and find out more about Jo Dodds and Little Dodsy and read your blog. Yeah. And they can read your blog, and they can really, you know, we've got to know a lot about you today, but they can get to know even more. Yeah?
I think that's great. Yes, brilliant.
So they can connect with you there. That's fantastic. And thank you for spending some time with us.
Well, thank you for inviting me. It's been great. I love the way that it's an interview based on what I'm saying as opposed to a long list of questions, which you get in other places, although it's a bit scary for people sometimes, isn't it, coming into a situation not knowing what the question's going to be, but they're equally scary for you.
Yes.
I remember from my days of teaching recruitment interviewing how people panic about how do I know what question to ask next, but it's about listening to the answers, and that's clearly what you're good at doing. Otherwise, we would have run out of questions long ago. Even if I had run out of chat.
I'm glad you've enjoyed it. That's brilliant. And maybe we'll get you back again sometime to talk about one specific thing.
That would be great.
Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Thank you very much.
Thank you.